This is the sixth edition from the nation's capital on News Central Television. I'm Neo Taigbe, and here are our top stories this hour. And so the group of G7 holds emergency meeting as oil prices surge amid US-Israel-Iran conflict. Appeal Court upholds ruling barring INEC from recognizing Ibadan PDP National Convention. Years of war and corruption devastate South Sudan's medical system. We'll bring you details in a moment. The group of G7 nations was holding an emergency meeting to address soaring oil prices and falling stock markets amid the escalating conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran. Finance ministers from leading economies, including the UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves, will assess the economic impact of the crisis. Global oil prices briefly approached $120 a barrel today, driven by fears of disruptions to energy supplies through the strategic Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, the UK's FTSE 100 index dropped about 1.3%. The Financial Times reports that the meeting may also consider coordinated release of petroleum reserves by members of the International Energy Agency. If approved, it will mark the first of such moves since 2022, following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, Iran has entered a new chapter after the appointment of Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei as the country's new supreme leader following the death of his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. But the leadership change comes as a widening regional conflict intensifies, with missile attacks across the Gulf and oil prices surging. For News Central, senior international correspondent Efia Hagen looks at the growing impact of the war.
Iran has entered a new and uncertain chapter after the appointment of Ayatollah Mojtaba Khomeini as the country's new supreme leader, replacing his father, Ayatollah Ali Khomeini. But the leadership transition has unfolded against the backdrop of an escalating regional war. Iran marked the start of this new era with a barrage of missiles and drones targeting Israel and several Gulf states, as the conflict entered its 10th day. Saudi Arabia says it intercepted drones aimed at oil facilities, whilst Bahrain reported a missile strike on its Al Marmir oil complex, causing fires and damage. Bahrain's state energy company has now warned it may not be able to fulfill export contracts. The United Arab Emirates and Kuwait also reported attacks, highlighting how the conflict is spreading across the region. Iranian state media says the country's powerful assembly of experts moved quickly to appoint Mojtaba Khomeini, presenting the decision as a show of unity during what it called aggression by the United States and Israel. The younger Khomeini, a cleric closely aligned with Iran's powerful Revolutionary Guard, is widely seen as a hardliner, expected to continue his father's policies and rejection of dissent. The war itself is widening beyond Israel and Iran. In Lebanon, Iran-backed Hezbollah says it is fighting Israeli forces who landed by helicopter near the Syrian border, with Lebanese officials reporting fierce clashes and dozens of casualties. Since the start of the conflict, Lebanese authorities say nearly 400 people have been killed, including children. Iran says more than 1,200 civilians have died in Israeli strikes, though those figures cannot be independently verified. Meanwhile, in Israel, Iranian missile attacks have killed at least 10 people. The United States has ordered non-essential diplomatic staff to leave Saudi Arabia, signaling fears the conflict could escalate further. For now, with a new supreme leader in Tehran and fighting spreading across multiple fronts, the region appears to be entering an increasingly volatile phase. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
Well, the Middle East conflict has expanded beyond U.S. and Israeli targets to include Gulf nations such as the UAE and Bahrain, with Iran also threatening Turkey and Azerbaijan. Meanwhile, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has offered to mediate if formally requested, calling for an immediate ceasefire to prevent further disruption to global shipping and market. Following Iran's election of a new supreme leader, the Islamic Revolution Guard Corps has pledged allegiance to Mojtaba Khamenei. Bongani Siziba, our correspondent in South Africa, we'll put this together. We'll bring you that package in a bit. Of the war, Nigeria's economy is already feeling the ripple effects of surging global oil prices after Brent crude climbed to $100 per barrel, above that. While the rally could boost government revenues, strengthen foreign exchange reserves, and widen fiscal buffers, it is still also pushing domestic fuel prices higher. Petrol prices have risen sharply across filling stations, increasing transport and production costs. For households and businesses still adjusting to economic reforms, the oil surge presents a paradox: stronger national earnings from crude exports, but higher costs for the people. Joining us virtually is foreign policy analyst Bolu Michael B. Thank you for joining us, Bolu.
Thank you.
Just a quick one. How is Manzini treating you?
He's fine. Good. Very good.
Okay, so this news about the G7 meeting and then the possible release of reserves, rumored at about 300 million barrels. Do you think it will make any impact?
Well, now I think the markets, they're reacting to fear. It's not just the supply shortage. It's not like the physical oil has stopped flowing. It's just the traders basically, speculating prices in anticipation of a possible blockage of the, crucial Strait of Hormuz that allows for the passage of these products. As you said earlier, that the last coordinated reserve release was in 2022 after after Russia invaded Ukraine. That measure alone, it temporarily cooled the prices, but it was only for a few weeks before we saw the markets rebounding. So that proves that fear-driven markets, that does not respond permanently to supply fixes. And the G7, they can control the reserves, they can control everything, but they can't control the conflict timelines. We are still seeing the missiles flying about, across the Gulf region. But as long as those missiles are being exchanged and continue to fly over the Gulf region, every barrel released is fighting a psychological market, not a logistical one. Because these reserves, they can't, bomb-proof a choke point. They can't control the Strait of Hormuz. So the real lever is the Strait of Hormuz. That is the bond. That's the area of contention.
But
so if we
okay,
see,
so if I may come in here, so we're now seeing this, the G7's having their conversation, but Iran appears to be moving on with its life. It's appointed a new spiritual leader, even though President Trump says he can't last long without his approval. Do you think that would make any difference?
I don't think it's going to make much difference because leadership transition during active conflicts almost always happens. It doesn't soften the regime because Mojtaba is now in a position whereby he has to prove his legitimacy, and he's not going to do that by being timid. And the structure of Iran's politics, it requires a leader to show strength, not compromise. And we might actually be seeing a leader that is more brutal than Ali Khamenei if we are to go by his current posture. The IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, they've already pledged allegiance to Mojtaba. It's expected whoever may have emerged, even not Mojtaba, they will still have done the same thing. But we should not see it as a ceremonial gesture.
Okay, so now there is our other bit about the UAE not wanting to partake in any attack on Iran. Do you think this appointment is part of the reasons why the UAE is saying, look, we don't want to have any, even though they've lost some civilians in some of their areas with the drone strikes and all of that? Are we witnessing a total collapse of regional neutrality in this conflict?
It's possible. It's possible because UAE will not just jump into a war just like that, even though its territorial integrity is being violated for two reasons. Number one is that Iran has tendered an apology. I think they want to go by that. It's a good thing that Iran is just not acting as though these countries they don't have rules and laws and there's no international law in place or a government in place that is looking after their citizens. They're not just putting that aside. The second thing is that the UAE is an economy that is built on oil and tourism. So if they kind of act in a certain way, it may actually ruin the UAE's reputation of being a stable and safe area for for tourists. And it is such a diverse environment, and the Iran government they know what they're doing because it's so diverse. There's a chance that if they hit civilian targets, they'll be hitting an American or a British or a German somewhere. It's kind of trying to bring NATO into the war. In my opinion, I don't understand the reason why they'll make such provocation. So we're not seeing kind of regional neutrality. What I want to see is for the GCC to have a collective defense clause in its, to that formally invoke certain processes in case any Gulf state gets pulled in one way or the other. And I think that's what we're currently seeing, and that's the domain everyone is watching.
All right, thank you so much. We've been speaking with Bolu Michael B., a foreign policy analyst. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
When we return, Peter Obi condemns surge in banditry, kidnappings, and other issues around security. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's look at a rundown of our top stories. G7 holds emergency meeting as oil prices surge amid US-Israel-Iran conflict. Appeal Court upholds ruling barring INEC from recognizing Ibadan PDP National Convention. And years of war and corruption devastate South Sudan's medical system. Now, the month of March is set aside globally to recognize achievements and contributions that continue to shape progress across societies. As the world marks the International Women's Day 2026, attention is also turning to the health sector, where professionals continue to play vital roles in improving health care and strengthening health systems. Sumaya Abubakar tells us more.
From hospitals to community health centers, women remain at the heart of healthcare delivery. Many serve as doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and community health workers, providing essential services and supporting patient care across the country. As conversations around International Women's Day continue, stakeholders say empowering women in the sector is key to building stronger health systems.
Having women um, in the health sector, it just gives the female perspective of things. So you have the female touch when things are being in the way things are being done and the way things we see things and all of that, especially when it comes to women, children's health, especially when it has to do with the children. Of course, you see the mother part of women come out.
So I would like policy in this space where women are in professions like health, where you have a lot of women in health space being represented in leadership position, maternity leave, being taken care of them. The pay that is commensurate. If they are spending money, they should be taken care of. The career doesn't have to be so tight in such a way that the woman is not supposed to choose between career and family.
While progress has been recorded over the years, some health professionals say women still face challenges ranging from demanding work schedules to limited representation in leadership positions. They note that mentorship, training, and inclusive workplace policies can help more women grow into decision-making roles.
There's no adequate provision of training, ensuring safety in working places. You're working and you're closing and you're facing a lot of challenges, like one will be recording death and death So, and then we also talk about offering, monitoring the career. How do we monitor this career, which should be properly um, being monitored? Then implementing policies in the health facilities.
As the world marks International Women's Day, the conversation around women in healthcare is not only about recognition, but also about creating opportunities that allow them contribute even more to strengthening health systems and improving patient care.
Public health advocates say supporting women in the sector goes beyond professional development. They argue that when women are empowered to lead in healthcare, the benefits extend to families and communities through improved access to care and stronger health outcomes.
Health sector, you have more women, nurses, midwives, researchers. So if you have them in the community, you find that people are more comfortable. There are sensitive areas where people prefer to go to a woman. So for childbirth, for community birth attendants, they're usually women, they're not men. So it's important to invest in them.
As activities marking International Women's Day continue through the month of March, stakeholders say the message of Give to Gain highlights the importance of supporting women whose work continues to shape the future of healthcare in Nigeria. In Abuja, for News Central, Sumaya Abubakar.
Well, to help us discuss issues concerning women generally, not just in the health sector, is Dr. Osasui Dirisu, Executive Director, Policy Innovation Center. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
It's good to see you.
Yes.
And thank you. Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day to you too and all the women in your life.
Thank you. I have very fantastic people in my life. But what would you say, in your experience, is the most visible challenge, or some will say, that the women get to face, especially in the health sector and generally?
The challenges are enormous, and sometimes it looks like we continue to talk about these things again. But I always say that advocacy has to continue if we want to see change. But I mean, some of those things, first of all, those barriers that limit women's ability to navigate the system. First of all, we have just even lack of understanding. You know, a lot of women sometimes, especially when you think about, from an intersectional lens, women in rural areas, women who are not educated, even women who are privileged. I mean, we find out that sometimes women just don't know what their rights are. Now, even when they know what their rights, they don't have the agency or the confidence to actually be empowered to make decisions for themselves. We see that decision-making power is something that is sometimes driven by financial autonomy. And sometimes you find out that that financial autonomy, women also don't have. So sometimes we sit and blame a woman for not living an abusive situation. But she sits down every day thinking about, how do I muster the resources to get up and say, I want to go or leave?
Is it even that, or the fact that many times they're even concerned about the impact of that, mustering that courage to even do anything?
Exactly. And that was what I was going to talk about next. Even if they are financially empowered to do that, they start to think about all the sort of family and community gatekeepers, the social stigma, what will people say, societal expectation that shape, what a woman should be, where she should be, and how she should interact with society. So those are some of the things that actually just make women pull back and say, you know what, let me stay in my own shell.
So you see, there's that misunderstanding or clarity, so to speak, because some people say, no, women can be like men. So there's that thing where some people say, no, we need to pursue equity. It's not about equality, but equity. That understanding. So how can organizations prioritize gender equity as a driver rather than a challenge in itself, to gain that clarity for access to justice, to health, to a better life generally?
So before an organization can prioritize gender equity, there has to be that understanding of the business case for it. Many times when we talk about gender equity, people are thinking of, just put a few more women in the mix. No, there is a clear development and profitability, productivity imperative for gender equity. So with that understanding that you have a more productive workforce, a more innovative workforce, a more productive society, if you give women that chance, then you understand that you're not doing, it's not a tokenistic favor, it's actually enhancing your productivity. And if that is something that is understood, there are two things to do quickly. One is create the structural mechanisms to ensure that equity is not an afterthought, but is embedded in policies, in approaches to working, in representation. So if you're thinking about creating a committee or a team within an organization or a society, you know that having representation and active participation of women in decision-making spaces, we are enabling and catalyzing opportunities for socioeconomic development.
Okay, so as I let you go here, in very simple terms, how can we make the life of the woman in all of these things and the men in their lives a little bit easier in the simplest terms? Because sometimes we speak the grammar, but then to break it down, how do we go about it? Even to the most educated?
To make the lives of women easier in the simplest terms, we need to understand that we cannot design for men and women using the same lens. So what are the unique features of a woman that makes it important, for example, within the healthcare system to program for her differently because she's coming into the system with different needs? What are the unique features of women going into politics, in academia? What are how are we thinking about some of those barriers, not imposed, not created by women, but as just part of either their physiology or their psychology? So things like caregiving, having to go for, you have to have a baby, you have to go for maternity leave. So it's just really understanding that we have to look at ourselves from a different lens to ensure that we are programming with equity in mind.
Thank you so much, Osasi Idris. Thank you for coming in this evening. We really do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And we wish you well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, the Court of Appeal in Abuja has dismissed the People's Democratic Party's appeal against the October 31 Federal High Court ruling that barred the Independent National Electoral Commission from recognizing the outcome of the party's national convention in Abuja, or your state. In a unanimous decision, a three-member appellate panel upheld the lower court's judgment, ruling against the PDP on all four issues raised. The court found the appeal without merit, confirming that the plaintiffs had the right to challenge the convention and that the PDP was not denied fair hearing. The panel also rejected claims that the court lacked jurisdiction, stating that the matter went beyond internal party affairs. Additionally, 2 million naira was awarded as costs against the PDP for filing a frivolous appeal.
We have listened to the judgments of the Court of Appeal, and we still maintain our position that our courts have no business in meddling into matters that are purely political. These are matters that should be left to the internal affairs and internal resolution of the political parties. The court had promised that the judgments should be ready by tomorrow. So as soon as the judgments are received by our lawyers, they will advise us on what further necessary steps to take, if any.
This is victory for PDP. Victory for every member of PDP in Nigeria and across Nigeria. It's a victory for everyone. Justice has been done. I want to appreciate the court for being very critical in this judgment. And it's a wake-up call for political parties to be able to ensure that their affairs of the party is being guided by the Constitution and other guidelines and instant laws. For us, we represent nobody because we are all PDP. And it's an opportunity to also call on every member of PDP to come back home.
I'm being joined by Barrister Okechukwu Oswoha, member National Caretaker Committee, PDP, and former Deputy National Legal Advisor of the PDP. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I could see there that where the two sides of the PDP were somewhat rejoicing. The other party says we'll be waiting for the judgment to take the possible necessary steps. And this other party says, no, we're okay. This is for everybody to come back home. But the question I'd like to ask is, and we didn't get that report.
Okay.
There's this news going out there that the appeal court also agreed with the suspension of the former the suspension of the national secretary of the party at that time. Was that anywhere mentioned in the judgment?
It's fake news. Okay. Because as far as I'm concerned, I was in the court.
Okay.
I witnessed what transpired in the court today. So, when we talk, you don't believe or be able to, when you see all these news in the social media, there's a lot of fake news. But in the court today, all the judgment that was given today is a landmark judgment, a welcome development, because it enriched our legal jurisprudence. I was present, and I saw the whole appeal, both about 9 or 10 appeals. They were heard in the court, and the justices, gave an unambiguous and clear judgment. Look at, because there's something that happened. That's why I say it enriches and develops our legal jurisprudence. You see, there's always that veil. People want to rely on that misconception that there was a Supreme Court judgment that said every matter about the party is an internal affairs of the party. But I was in court today. The justices had to, lift up that veil and told them, no, we are in a democracy, we're in a democratic society, and democracy must thrive by the rule of law. You cannot afford to be disobeying court judgments. You cannot afford to be going against the rule of law. You must do things in accordance with the extant laws of the land. One of them is the ground norm. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We have the Electoral Act and the Constitution of the party. The party is an association. And when you belong to a political party, the constitution of that party is binding on all the members. And when you want to do things, you do it in accordance with the constitution of the party. Okay. So that's what the court said today, because most of the things, like there's 2 substituting court judgments of the Federal High Court, we are so clear. They looked at the matter that was before them and said that it was not bordering on internal affairs of the party. It's not about the management of the party, members of the party, or officers of the party. That it had to do with a violation of the extant laws of the land. That some aggrieved members of the party approached the court, that there was this disenfranchisement, exclusion of some of the members.
So we'll just need to take a short break.
Okay.
We'll go on a quick break. We'll come back and pick up from where we left.
Okay.
Just stay with us. Welcome back. We still have Barrister Okechukwu, also a member of PDP Caretaker Committee. Now that this judgment has come from the appeal court, and those who are lovers of PDP and the Nigerian political space are wanting to know what's the next step, what's the way forward. Can the PDP house be put together again? Is there a chance?
Yes, that's why it's a pertinent and important question. That's why today's appeal court judgment is a welcome development. Because already that's why I want to advise the other party, those who lost out in the appeal court today, that they should not admit that it is all over. It is better for you to know when, leave the stage when the ovation is high. Because right now, we have set up a machine, something in motion. By the ending of this month, 29th and 30th of this month, March, we are going to, there's going to be a convention, national convention of the party, to produce authentic national officers of the party. Because already the Federal High Court has nullified that convention.
So are you not concerned that all of this is going to affect your participation in certain elections?
There's an electoral timetable. That electoral timetable, we are binding by it. So by that month end, we do our national convention. Already Congress you saw the court judgment today. The Federal High Court, the Court of Appeal was so vehement. They were so annoyed. And they told the other party, that why did you not obey the Federal High Court judgment and say you should conduct congresses in some states of the federation, because that if you don't do it, it's a exclusion and also tantamount to disenfranchisement, which is a violation of the extant laws of the land and even your constitution.
So would your party be able to participate in the
Yes,
Osun
the
and
congresses
Ekiti
are taking place now. By the month end, we do our national convention.
You've not answered the question. Would your party be able to participate in the Ekiti and Osun elections?
Because of the crisis that was going on. So
you lost out of that.
The candidates who were emerged from that purported primary that took place, that those unlawful people who felt that were elected in Ibadan convention, that they produced. That's why the INEC. You see, these things, you're supposed to obey the extant rule of law. You don't do things by impunity, by your whims and caprices. The answer to your question, PDP is moving forward.
Okay.
I'm appealing to the other party. It's a larger house. People should come together. What we should do now is reconciliation.
All right.
People should come back. Even the agree parties, I think they should now know that litigation has ended. With this court of appeal, even going to a Supreme Court or wasting their time and energy and money is all about exercising futility. They should come back now so that we can be able to do our house in order, so that we produce candidates. Because by the time we do that national convention by month end, INEC will observe it. We produce national officers.
Okay.
At the end of the day, we do competent primary, authentic primary that will produce candidates that will contest the election in 2027. You see that PDP is a brand. It's a brand. It's a brand. The Nigerians love.
Good, worthy brand.
Thank you.
Wish you well. Thank
you so much.
Osoi is a member PDP Caretaker Committee. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
All right, still talking politics. The Labour Party says it has commenced electronic registration for its members. This was made known in Abuja by the national chairperson of the party, Nenadi Usman, who unveiled the party's membership registration portal to the press at its national headquarters. Usman urged all citizens in support of the party to register online as part of the party's current membership registration exercise.
The Labour Party is our party, and we are all going to work together to build and develop it so that we make a robust opposition party for the betterment of Nigeria. So I want to call on Nigerians, I want to call on all supporters of the Labour Party to please go online. The link, we are going to share the link. Go online wherever it is that you are.
In the meantime, former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, has labelled Nigeria's escalating insecurity unbearable. He highlighted recent mass abductions and deadly terrorist attacks across Borno, Nasarawa, and several other states. The former governor noted that thousands are now internally displaced. He urged the government to prioritize citizen safety and properly honor fallen and brave soldiers. Well, to clarify and shed more light on this, we are being joined by Emmanuel Idakwo, North Central spokesperson, Obedient Movement. Thank you for joining us, Emmanuel.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so, well, I mean, Mr. Peter Obi spoken there saying insecurity across the land is unbearable and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think it's the reality that we all face as Nigerians. It's quite pitiable, dismal, because I believe the first responsibility of every government is the protection of life and property. And you can see how careless this government has been, in handling issues of security. You can see the killings in different parts from Borno to other parts of the country. The kidnapping is very high, and the government is doing relatively nothing good, in trying to curb these things from spreading to other parts of the country.
So I like that you use the word relatively. And so what would you suggest as a relative alternative to what the government is doing now? Because the government will tell you that they are doing their best.
This government has had virtually 3 years. And the issue of state policing has been, on the front decks. And that has not been implemented whatsoever. Nothing reasonable has been done towards that. And a serious government who really prioritizes security would do everything necessary on time. And we also hear a couple of issues that, came up regarding allegations of kidnappers being paid ransom even by government officials. And the government has not taken time to critically give attention to these things. And it's a serious concern, for every Nigerian. I think every Nigerian should be worried because we don't know who is next. You know, on the list of these attacks by bandits and terrorists, everyone is not safe. Nowhere in the country is safe. So I think it's about time that the government, you know, is called, you know, to order and make the security of the life of every Nigerian priority. In fact, you can see how, you know, the morale of our military personnel, I don't think it's at the best that it should be, because the government, the president, who is the commander-in-chief, does not even acknowledge, you know, the fallen heroes of Nigerians. Would hear over the news, you know, in a couple of military personnel, senior military personnel, you know, being killed in the course of carrying out their duties, and no word from the commander-in-chief. It's a sad situation, sad reality that we face in the country today. But we believe that we have to do better as Nigerians. And Peter Obi has made it, you know, a thing, you know, to ensure that as opposition, he calls the attention of government to the critical things that government should carry out. And that is why he spoke out. And we are all, you know, we are all charged as Nigerians to also do same by calling the attention of the government to this critical issue, which is security.
Okay, so the question I asked you earlier, which was like, what's the alternative you would have suggested?
Like I said, I talked about community policing.
State policing.
Yes.
State policing. But state policing didn't just, that conversation around state policing did not start now.
Okay.
So how would you want it to be implemented? Because some people are also concerned that state police will not work in Nigeria. It will be hijacked. It will not, the structure, we don't have this Nigeria. They say that Nigeria is not structured for state policing. What do you think?
I think there are so many things that I believe, you know, this government has to put a check on. For instance, you hear statements that will come from senior security, the security advisor making statements like terrorists are also our brothers and things like that. I believe some rhetorics, you know, continue to fuel these issues that we have. You know, when the body language of the government shows is accommodating to terrorists, to bandits, to kidnappers, all of these things will continue to surge. When we hear issues that kidnappers collect ransom, and critically the government does not address the issue, that, you know, properly, for people to know that it is totally absurd and unacceptable, you know, for the government to pay kidnappers ransom, because that will embolden, you know, the terrorists, that will embolden kidnappers. Others will see it, you know, as an industry that they could also, you know, go into and then begin to make money out of it. So the body language of this government has created an enabling environment for terrorists to thrive. So the first thing we have to do is to change, you know, the rhetoric on ground and ensure that we are not, you know, giving terrorists a soft footing, that we ensure that people who are being involved in terrorism, in banditry, you know, face the law critically without stories or excuses.
All right, thank you very much. Manu Dakwa is a spokesperson, Obedient Movement, North Central. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you. It's
Wish
a pleasure.
you well. We'll take another break. When we return, we're seeing what's going on beyond the shores of Nigeria. Just stay with us. Reports have it that years of conflict and corruption have destroyed South Sudan's healthcare. Currently, foreign NGOs fund over 80% of the country's remaining medical services. Elites often flee abroad for treatment while local clinics collapse. Most citizens rely on charities for basic survival and emergency surgeries. Medical staff receive tiny, delayed wages, forcing the non-governmental organizations to provide incentives. The International Committee of the Red Cross says even these donations only cover for a small part of their need.
أنا حاجة كعب أنا شوفه أنا كسروني لكن أنا بيعمل حاجة الكويس يعني بيعرف فرق بين هيا بين مود وهاي أنا عرفته.
So what usually happens, like we treat them here, they get better. When they go back home, I think there's a lot of things that happen, either stigmatization, stress, or an act of wanting to do vengeance. So they go back again for the same fighting, or they want to revenge, and then again they get shot. because of the economic crisis, because now everything they lost now and they have to go back for the same thing. And maybe they want to go and do some bit of cattle raiding to kind of like bring back some of the things they lost. So at the end of the day, they get shot and they come back. I've actually had one patient who came back about 4 times, but on the last 5th time, unfortunately, we lost him.
The risk with the continuation of very, very low funding and support to actors who are actually being able to do something in this country, supporting both primary health care and hospitals, is that the general and public health situation of South Sudanese might deteriorate. As such, the ICRC focuses, of course, on the weapon wounded linked to conflict. But even in that work, we do see the reverberating effects of the challenges faced by the wider health system. On top of that, with the massive arrival of returnees and refugees from Sudan starting in 2023, that has exceeded 1 million people who have been welcomed by many communities. This adds additional strain on the resources in this country that is also plagued by natural disasters and very regular flooding. You combine that with armed conflict, it makes for a very difficult situation for the average South Sudanese. And humanitarian support and assistance and protection
Ghana is calling on the Commonwealth of Nations to strongly condemn a missile strike that injured 4 of its peacekeepers serving with the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL. Foreign Minister Samuel Okudzeto, a blocker, described the attack as a violation of the United Nations Charter and called for an immediate investigation. The strike occurred amid rising tensions between Hezbollah and Israel. 3 soldiers sustained minor injuries while a 4th underwent surgery and is reported to be stable. Residents in southwestern Niger say heavy gunfire and explosions were heard overnight in the city of Tehua near the border with Nigeria. Witnesses say unidentified attackers on motorcycles arrived around 3 a.m., triggering exchanges of fire near the city's airport and central districts. Calm was later restored, though authorities have not released casualty figures. Niger, under military rule since 2023 coup, has faced years of violence from armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. The Sahel region is also known for banditry and cross-border smuggling routes. Drone strikes have killed at least 33 people at markets in Sudan's West Kordofan state, according to local media sources. The strikes hit the towns of Abu Zabad and Wad Banda, areas controlled by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, leaving dozens or more injured. The residents blamed Sudan's army, but a military source denied deliberately targeting civilians. In East Darfur's capital El Dain, another drone strike ignited oil barrels at a market, triggering a large fire. Sudan's nearly 3-year conflict between the army and the RSF has killed thousands and displaced more than 11 million people. Well, back to South Sudan's healthcare system, which is struggling under years of conflict, corruption, and natural disasters, leaving many unable to access basic medical care. The country relies heavily on foreign aid, with over 80% of medical support provided by international organizations like the International Red Cross and Doctors Without Borders. Nigeria's manufacturing sector remitted 875.4 billion naira in value-added tax between January and September 2025, at 54.7% increase from 566 billion recorded in the same period of 2024, highlighting the sector's growing role in supporting non-oil revenue. The 9-month figure also surpasses the entire 578.4 billion naira paid in 2023. Analysts say the rise reflects stronger tax collections across the industrial value chain, though inflation and exchange rate effects may have inflated nominal VAT receipts. However, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria warns that high VAT and rising production costs are squeezing manufacturers, reducing competitiveness and potentially threatening jobs. In the meantime, Nigeria spent about 27.2 trillion naira servicing public debt between 2024 and 2025, exceeding capital expenditure by 3.9 trillion naira and highlighting mounting fiscal pressure on the federal budget, according to the brief from the Federal Ministry of Finance. Debt servicing rose from 12.63 trillion in 2024 to 14.53 trillion in 2025, largely driven by the naira's depreciation and higher domestic interest rates following higher monetary policy by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The data shows that debt payments consumed about 60% of government revenue in 2024 and roughly 66% by late 2025, limiting fiscal space for infrastructure and growth supporting investment. Ghana is moving ahead with a new sliding scale royalty regime for gold miners, linking state revenues to rising bullion prices, despite the concerns from foreign governments and mining executives. The policy replaces the flat 5% royalty with a scale that could rise to 12% when gold prices reach $4,500 per ounce. Officials say the reform would allow the country to capture more value from surging commodity prices while maintaining investor confidence. Isaac Tando, CEO of the Minerals Commission of Ghana, says the policy balances higher government revenue with industry sustainability, despite warnings from the Ghana Chamber of Mines about investment risks. That's all we can take for now. Before we go, let's look at the headlines again. G7 holds emergency meeting as oil prices surge amid U.S.-Israel-Iran conflict. We also told you that the appeal court has upheld the ruling of the lower court barring INEC from recognizing the Ibadan PDP National Convention. And finally, we told you that years of war and corruption has devastated South Sudan's medical system. We'd like to hear from you. Send your comments and eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp numbers showing on your screen. I encourage you to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV on all the platforms. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Able TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Neota Igwe.